Hello everybody and welcome on in here to our user group webinar. My name is Jim. I'm coming to you live on an overcast day here in Columbus, Ohio. I'm so glad you guys could all join me here today, where we will be talking about setting up your mid-year donation statements in the Church Windows program. We'll be going through the different options that we have for generating our donation statements here in version 20 of our program. So before we get started on that, a word or two about your GoToWebinar control panel y'all are going to have on your screens there. There is a small red button with an arrow on it, usually in the upper left-hand corner of that screen, that allows you to either minimize that control panel or maximize it. Minimizing it gives you a little more room on your display there to see what we're talking about in our presentation here today. Maximizing it gives you access to all the features there. Most importantly, the questions portion there. I will be doing approximately 20 minutes here for our presentation here today. If you can think of any questions, feel free to go ahead and type those in there as it pertains to the topic that we're covering here today. I will leave the room open for a bit after the presentation to answer any questions that have come through. So without further, the one other thing I did want to mention, that if you do have a copy of our regional training manuals that we have for sale, the contents of today's presentation are from the Regional Training Manual D106, pages 2 through 17. We're going to be covering the topics in those sections of our regional training manuals. Okay, so let's go ahead and start taking a look at that now. We are running version 20.17.3 as we see here in the upper right-hand corner of our program here. That is the current version of Church Windows. And again, we're going to be talking about getting our mid-year donation statements out. So I'm going to go ahead and launch donations by clicking on that option from our opening menu. Here is, okay, got a couple of people saying that my volume might not be quite loud enough. Let me go ahead and try to adjust that for you. All I can really do is shove this thing closer to my face. So hopefully that'll help out a little bit better. Okay, so this is our opening image map in the donations module. Opening up the donation statement is done by clicking on this button right here. Clicking here takes you to the opening screen for the donation statement. There are 2 steps to generating your donation statement report. Step 1 is where you determine whose statements you're going to be generating, and also this is kind of where you're going to determine the date ranges that you're going to be using here. So there are a series of tabs that go along the top of this screen, and we're going to go over the various options in each of these tabs, starting with the Giving/Pledging tab right here. The first thing we want to look at here is setting up your date range, which is done right under here. It defaults to the current calendar year, so you see here we've got January through December of 2018 set up there. So we're going to go ahead and do this for, actually you can either click on the down arrow and set your date using our map here, or you can simply type. As we've got it set there, 6/30/2018. Okay, then the next 2 sections we need to look at on here is where we're kind of determining which folks we're going to generate our statements for. There's a giving search and there is a pledging search that you can do on here. Now, for each of them, the basics for what you're selecting here are the same. So if you select all, what you are saying for example, here I'm selecting giving and then all. What you're basically saying is everybody's statement is going to be generated here regardless of their giving status. If you select all on here, that would go the same for pledging and all. What that means is whether they have given or not, they could have not given anything during our time period, or they could have given $1 million here. That means it is regardless of their giving, it is going to generate a statement for them. So if you do giving and pledging all, then basically you're generating statements for everybody in the entire Church Windows program who is valid to have a statement. It'll be a ton of people with no giving and no pledging if you do it that way. There is a selection below that where you can select only those who have given. In this case, it'd be like 1 penny or more for the first 6 months of 2018 if you select that. You can set a range of giving, only those with giving from, and you can set a range here. It could be $50 to no upper limit, or you can set up a specific range if you uncheck that no upper limit box here. Or you can also conversely only print statements for those who did not give. So functionally, the options for pledging are the same. Only those who have pledged. It opens up some additional options down here below that we're going to talk about. Only those with a particular pledge, sort of range of pledging here, or those who did not pledge. Also notice in between here, there's a little drop down for and as well as or between these two. It defaults to and, which means both of these criteria must be true for their statement to be pulled in the next screen with all of our statements. If you select or, that means either one of these two criteria would trigger pulling somebody's statement out. So for example, if you did giving include only those who gave, or pledging include only those who pledged, it would print a statement for anybody who has given anything, as well as a statement for anybody who has pledged anything. Okay, both of those don't have to be true. Either one of them can be true. So if somebody gave $1 but didn't pledge, it would print their statement. If somebody pledged $1 but didn't give, it would also generate their statement. That's what the or does. With and, both of these things have to be true for their statement to be generated. And again, remember, when you're doing this, it is for the date range that you have set on this screen. Okay? All right, so for the purposes of our presentation here today, I'm going to go with giving include all. I don't care if they gave or not. These are just our mid-year donation statement updates, basically, that we're sending to our members. Usually this is going to be for pledging churches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say giving include all, and I'm going to use only those who have pledged. So everybody who's pledged to our church, regardless of whether they've given or not, I'm going to generate their statements here. When you select only those who pledge here, there's a couple of additional options that you get. Whether they have met all of their pledges is a checkbox, or whether they have not met all of their pledges is a checkbox. I'm going to leave both of them checked because I don't care in this example whether they've met their pledges or not. I'm just generating these statements for everybody who has pledged. There is also a section at the bottom here with particular pledge types. From here, I am going to deselect on that section flat and annual pledge types, because basically flat and annual pledge types, what your member is saying is that I'm going to pledge this amount by the end of the year or by the end of the pledge. Sometimes folks don't need to know that they haven't given anything yet when they said that they would have given their money by the end of the period, okay? It's up to you whether you want to include annual or flats if you're going to do it in this way. For the purposes of my demonstration here, I'm just going to uncheck them. Okay, so some of the other tabs that we have here along the top, we have a Givers tab. Now the Givers tab is where you can kind of filter based upon membership criteria, usually is what you're going to do in here. So for example, over here on the right side, you can filter by categories. So in version 20 of Church Windows, all of your membership records can be divided up into different categories that you create. The defaults are members and visitors. If I only wanted to generate donation statements for people with families with the category of members, I could uncheck that here. So you can also filter based upon folks, whether they have giver numbers or not, and even set up different number ranges for giver numbers on here. The other thing that you can do here is search by any field that you have available in the membership module. So if I click on my down arrow here, anything in membership, it's valid to search by. So as an example for a thing you might want to do here, you could, for example, do a search by status code and only print statements for active members. That's just an example, but that's one way we could do this statement. So if you do select a field on here, you would then click your plus selection button. You'd see it plop down here underneath where it says select membership individuals fitting these criteria, and that's the search that you're performing here. This would only be active members that I generate their statements if I did it in this way. I'm going to go ahead and print everybody from our member file that has pledged, regardless of they're an active member or not. So what I can do to get rid of that is I can use my little remove line button here to get rid of that bit of search criteria on here. But that is something you could do here on the Givers tab. And really you can search by anything, membership date, birth date, heck, gender, anything that you, directory report order, anything that you track here in the membership module, you can search by using that. Okay, the next tab along the top here is called the Accounts tab. Here is where it allows you to kind of filter what giving accounts you are going to display on your statement here, or rather that your search applies to. So by default, your search criteria, again, what we said was everybody who has pledged, regardless of the amount that they have given, that defaults to all accounts in your system, as you see here. If you wanted that limited to only your general operating fund, for example, you could select that in the left side where it says available accounts, click on your little arrow button over here to the right, and now underneath selected accounts, we're now only going to be doing, showing general fund contributions on our donation statement here, if we did it in this way. So that's whatever you see under selected accounts are the accounts that you're going to have on your donation statement. You can also, I'm getting rid of that because I want to see everything on my statements. But the other thing you can do is limit it to a particular campaign by using this drop down here at the top. So if I only wanted to see folks who pledged to the general fund in 2018, I would select that campaign here. Now I'm only seeing folks who have pledged to the general fund 2018. Again, I don't want to do that. I'm going to click on my little X button to clear that out. So that's what the Accounts tab allows you to do, is kind of limit which accounts show up on your statements when you print them. The Sort tab is the next tab we have here available along the top of our screen. And this is the order in which your statements will be generated. What we see here under Sort Field 1, we have Giver Name. If I click on my down arrow here, you see we've got a couple of options. We can sort it by zip code, we can sort it by giver numbers, or we can sort it by giver name here. Ascending versus descending here. Ascending basically means it starts at A, B, C, D, E, and goes up. Descending would start at the top and work its way backwards, Z, Y, X, etc. Okay, that's just how they sort. Over here on the Options tab is a couple of little things on here. You can have church windows give you a pop-up screen to let you know that one or more of your statements has exceeded a single page in length with this checkbox here. It'll just give you, I'm going to leave that on because just to show you what that looks like, because some of our statements are going to, I think, are probably going to exceed a page. So it'll give us a little warning message. You check that if you're basically trying to avoid having to waste paper when you're printing your statements out here. Then you can also rename some of the columns on your pledge giving section of your statement here. If you don't like the term pledged, you can change it to statement promise of giving or something like that. It's not a very long field here, but you can change that label, and it's just in that section for pledge giving that you see on the statements, just the titles of those columns. You can also, if you have certain statements that you generate over and over again, you can save your search criteria here in this saved selections thing section here at the bottom. If you click on your little floppy disk button here, you can save this criteria so that you don't have to select these as well. Okay, once you've got all this stuff set the way in which you want it to be, you simply click Next here in the lower right-hand corner here, and it takes you to the Step 2 window. Step 2 is where we're going to be looking at the different formats of our statement here. There's a couple of things that we are not going to be getting into here in our presentation. But let's take a look first of all here on our Options tab here along the top. First of all is our statement layout. You do have the ability to customize donation statement layouts by using the Statement Designer button right over here that allows you to format your statements however you see fit. It's not part of this presentation here today, but if you have multiple layouts that you've saved, you will see them on the drop-down list here when you click on the down arrow next to Statement Layout. The ones that are built into Church Windows have template at the beginning. These it'll say bracket, template, close bracket, and you see these 4 formats. These are the ones that are built in with Church Windows. If you've created other layouts, you will also see them on the drop-down list next to Statement Layout. We're going to go ahead and do our windowed envelope format. That's the most commonly used standard format there. Below that, we have our section for setting up a global memo that we can include with our statement. If I click on my down arrow, these are the ones that we have already set up in our system. We can either edit or create new global memos by clicking on this little button over here to the right. Looks like a little piece of paper right there. And if I click on that, it'll take us to this. It'll show you our standard message, and it'll kind of show you what that message is if you click on the down arrow here under message. This can be edited if you want to, or you can simply create a new one by giving it a title, typing in the message here, and clicking on your add button there. I am simply going to use my standard message for these statements here today. Okay. And I'll show you what that memo looks like in just a moment. Okay. So we're looking at a grid here with all of the names of the people who met our search criteria. We don't have a huge database on here. So we have a series of checkboxes for whose we're going to print. You can check or uncheck individual names if you wanted to on this list. You can also email statements, and again, that's not the topic of this webinar here today, but if you have the email portion of donations set up in here, you will be able to check folks and email them their statements on here. But that is basically it. Now notice here our quarterly section date range here on the step 2 window matches what we selected back on the step 1 window. So our search criteria that we did is the first half of the year, and then the date range of all of the gifts on our statements is also going to be the first half of the year. Printing your statements from here is simply a matter of clicking the print/email statements down in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. It's going to take us to a print preview window and kind of give us a quick look at what our default windowed envelope format looks like here. So church information is listed up in here. The individual whose statement you're generating is in here. It's designed to kind of be able to line up if you're using a windowed envelope. You've got your detail section right here showing each individual gift that they've had throughout the year. It'll show you the date, the giving account, and the amount listed here. The pledge giving section is below this line here. So it shows each of their pledges that they're participating in the general fund for the 2018 year we see here. They have pledged $1,000 monthly for a total of $6,000 for the first half of the year. The total amount given is this amount. The over-under is here. Okay? So that's the pledge giving comparison section. Below this yellow line here is our monthly breakdown. So it shows you each of the months of the year and the amount that they've given for pledging and non-pledge giving for that period of time. Breaks it down by quarter as well. Then if you scroll down, there is our memo section right there. So the global memo that we set up shows up at the bottom of that there. Okay, I ran a little bit over here today. I apologize about that. But that's all the time we have here today. So that is generating your donation statement for the first half of the year. If you are all set to get on with your day, first of all, let me thank you guys for joining me here. If you're all set to get on with your day, feel free to click on the X in the upper right-hand corner of your GoToWebinar control panel. That exits you out of here. So for folks who are leaving, thanks so much for joining me here today. I am going to leave the room open a little bit to answer a couple of questions that came through as I was doing the webinar. If you have additional questions, feel free to go ahead and type those in now. I'll get to all those before I close the room up here. Question came in, please show how to print two-sided pages for a statement. Okay, so that is, first of all, that's going to require you to have a printer that you're printing to that is capable of printing dual-sided. And if you do, you can get to your printer options from the print preview window. When you click on this little print icon up here, this is going to give you access to your different printer options. And sometimes, I don't know if, oh, this is, I don't have any real printers set up on my test machine here, but depending on the options for your printer, you may have an option in here to do dual-sided on here. Again, this all depends on the type of printer you're printing to. This looks all different depending on which type of printer you're going to print to there. Okay, yeah, question about these webinars, whether they're going to be available to review them. Yes, we record all of our webinars and we publish them to our website. It usually takes a couple of days, so it should be up and running next week. This one you can review. If you go to our website at churchwindows.com and you go to supporting and you go to our support center, you'll see a couple of our videos posted right here. And you can also do a search by typing in here. Oop, what did I do? So if you click in this box, it's not being very responsive. Come on, computer, don't be mean. But anyway, yeah, it's under supporting and support center, and you can do a search for these videos on this window here. Statement, search, and you'll see emailing donation statements. So you'll see the different topics. You can do a search from there. Okay, problem with keeping the date wanted to be restricted. It will only give you the pledged amount. Right. When you are only generating a statement for the first 6 months of the year, it can't calculate for folks who have done yearly pledging, because the way the system determines how much somebody has pledged, if somebody does a yearly pledge, it only calculates how much they've pledged at the end of the year. If you remember earlier in my presentation on the step 1 window, I told it I don't want to see flat pledging or annual pledging when I do my statements, because these folks said I will have X amount of money to you by the end of the year. That's my pledge. And if you're doing a 6-month statement, it'll say the amount they have pledged is equal to 0, because by the end of June, they haven't pledged anything yet. Their pledge ends at the end of December. So that's why back on my step 1 window, I basically said I only want to see annual. I don't want to see annual pledges on my statements here. So that's kind of, there's no great solution to it. So that's just kind of the way it has to calculate based upon pledging there. Yeah, if you're having specific, okay, so my next question is about your Namisha and your specific printer. If you're having problems with a specific printer situation, you may want to call our support line number. I'm not going to be able to determine what's going on with your printer based on this chat room here. So our support line number is at 800-533-5227. For specific questions like, a problem you're having with your particular printer, you'll want to add that in there. Okay. Couple of, sort of off-topic questions here about adding in-kind giving and things along those lines. You can always enter gifts with a $0 amount and then just use the comments to type in what their gift was for. Not the topic of the webinar we're doing here today. If you have more specific questions about it, you can check out our website at churchwindows.com and you can do searches for those topics, or you can call into our support line number. Again, that's at 800-533-5227 for specific questions. If we don't pledge, can you eliminate pledge comments from the statement? I'm guessing what you mean by that, Barbara, is that pledge giving analysis portion, which is this section here on your donation statement. The answer to that question is yes. You use your statement designer to determine what parts of your statement print. You just have to create a different format, basically, for those pledges, pledge comparisons not to show up on your statement. Yeah, and Victoria from earlier, yes, if you can run 2 sets of statements if you have annual pledgers who you don't want to show amount pledged equal to 0. You could run one set of statements for all of your monthly or quarterly pledgers or weekly pledgers, and then another set, sort of with a different display options, however you want to set it up. It's all flexible. You can do these statements however you want to, just for your folks who are annual pledgers. Okay. I'm going to leave the room open just for another minute or two. If you have any questions, go ahead and get them in now. Okay, so Victoria, if your members are getting confused about the amount pledged that is displaying on their statement, one thing I often recommend to folks to do is to set up a global memo explaining what the amount pledged actually shows. You could come in here to the global memo, create a new memo with a message in here that basically explains the amount pledged is only for the first 6 months of the year, and have that print at the bottom of your statement. The program can only display what you tell it to display. So if you do a first half of the year donation statement, that's what it's going to show. So I would recommend creating a global memo explaining what that field would do. Yeah, it does kind of require them to read it as well, but yeah, that's the best solution I could come up with for that. Heck, if you want to, you can go into your statement designer and have the global memo be the very first thing that appears on your statement. Move it up to the top of the statement, so the very first thing that they see is that memo. I don't know if that would necessarily help. It might help with somebody, but you could put it in a different position as opposed to at the bottom of the page as well. I'm not going to show the statement designer right now. That's a very big topic and a very confusing screen. And we do have statement designer movies available on our website. So again, if you go to supporting and you go to support center, once this screen loads, it seems like it takes a second before it loads. Yeah, there it goes. So now if you come in here and I just type in statement designer, hit my enter key, donation, statement designer, and right here's a video that'll show you how it all works. So again, this is one of our webinars that we recorded, and it's available on our website. So just do a search for statement designer and there will be a movie in there for you. Nobody pick up the phone, it's party time. Okay, I think that's probably going to be all of our questions here. So I'm going to go ahead and close out the room for everyone. Thank you for folks who are still here. Thank you very much for joining me here today. I hope you have a good rest of your afternoon. And yeah, again, thanks for joining me. Bye, everybody.